This little thing costs about $40, and somehow it can play a surprising number of retro games. We're talking about NES, Super NES, Genesis, Game Boy, MAME, PlayStation, Nintendo 64, Dreamcast, and PSP. This is the R36S, marketed as the old arcade retro handheld gaming console. It's sold by different brands, but the model number is the same. But here's the question. Is this actually one of the best cheap retro handhelds you can buy? Or is it just another cheap gadget that's going to end up in a drawer? Let's find out. I've been playing with the R36S for about a week, and I have to say, for something in this price range, this retro handheld is more fun than you might think. But there's definitely some things you need to know before buying one because it isn't perfect. And depending on where you buy it, you might not even get exactly the same hardware as I have here. So let's break this thing down. The R36S looks like someone took a classic Game Boy, gave it a bigger screen, added two analog sticks, and then squeezed an entire retro game collection inside. It's compact, lightweight, and easily fits into a jeans pocket or a backpack. The controls are laid out pretty much where you'd expect them. D-pad here, A, B, X, Y buttons here, with a Nintendo layout, two analog sticks underneath, and then you got your shoulder buttons on the back. This isn't a premium handheld. You can definitely feel that this is a budget device, but honestly it doesn't feel as cheap as I expected. There are two USB-C ports, one for charging and another OTG or on the go. This thing said it supports HD, but none of my USB-C to HDMI adapters worked, even with cold booting. I couldn't get video out on this thing at all, even though it's advertised. This OTG port is basically to recover your microSD card if you need to reinstall or mount a USB stick to transfer files from the system. The utilities it comes with are hard to use, so you're better off managing the files from a separate computer. Believe it or not, the screen is one of the best things about this handheld. It's a 3.5-inch IPS display with a 640 by 480 resolution. Those numbers aren't going to impress anyone in 2026, but for retro gaming, it's great. The games don't require upscaling, so the hardware can run at original resolution and has a similar, if not the exact same, 4:3 aspect ratio of the original games. Playing games that were meant for a tube TV look great, like NES, Genesis, and Super Nintendo. Games for handhelds like the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance feel rather nostalgic. Even though it is low resolution, it's hard to see the individual pixels on this small screen. Text that's really small is hard to make out though, but for a budget handheld, I really don't have much to complain about here. So let's talk about the controls. The D-pad is actually pretty decent, and that's important because you're going to be using it for most of the games this thing's designed for. There's a function button here in the middle, where an Xbox button would be on other controllers, but it isn't used at all. The face buttons are slightly mushy and have a decent amount of travel, but they feel pretty responsive. But there's a couple of quirks. These shoulder buttons are really loud and clicky, and the start and select buttons have a noticeable click with hardly any travel. So if you're playing in a quiet room, everyone around you is going to hear this thing. And then there's these analog sticks. They're useful, but don't expect Steam Deck level analog control. Honestly, not a lot of games that come with this system use it. They're fine for navigating the menus on certain 3D games, but this isn't really the handheld I'd choose for games that depend heavily on precise analog movement. And that's okay, because that's not what the R36 does best. Instead of a complex general-purpose operating system like Android with an app slapped on top of it, the R36S is running a lightweight Linux distro called ArkOS, and it's running Emulation Station. The best part about this is you just turn it on, choose a system, choose a game, and you're playing. There's no complicated windows to navigate through or different programs to configure. There's no giant launcher and no login required. Just pick a game and go. If you're familiar with Emulation Station, then you'll be comfortable tinkering around with this and customizing it however you want. Unfortunately, since there's no Wi-Fi, you're not going to be able to scrape new games that you add to the system. Retro Achievements isn't going to work either. The system has some pre-configured system-wide hotkeys, and if you use Emulation Station, you should be familiar with them. There's a brightness adjustment, R3 up and down, save game state, select an L1, load a game state, select an R1, exit a game is select and start, pause is select an A, and restart is select and B. So what can it actually play? This is where you need to have realistic expectations. For 8-bit and 16-bit systems, the R36S is fantastic. NES, easy. Super Nintendo, great. Genesis, no problem. Game Boy, absolutely. Arcade games like MAME, lots of fun. And once you get into PlayStation 1, the R36S continues to impress. This is really where the hardware makes the most sense. But then we get into systems like Nintendo 64, Dreamcast, and PSP. Then your mileage may vary depending on the game. There are some stutters, and you have to go into the emulator settings to set up frame skipping and prevent audio glitches. Some of these games run surprisingly well, and others don't. So don't buy this expecting this is going to be a $40 Steam Deck. Set your expectations accordingly. Anything up to PlayStation 1 is going to be great. Honestly, playing PSP isn't that great an experience anyway, just because there's black borders on the top and bottom. Even though it can handle DS games, I don't recommend it because it just doesn't fill out the 4:3 aspect ratio on this screen. I got this to have the full screen experience with retro handhelds. The R36S comes with a 64GB microSD card pre-configured with a bootable OS and lots of games. Having thousands of games ready to go sounds great, but the quality of those games is questionable. There's lots of R36S variants and the game list will differ. Take the card as a starting point and add your own games. Just know that scraping is going to be a chore, so scrape this from another system, copy the ROMs and videos and images and game list XML from that other system, put it on the SD card here, and this system will pick it right back up. If you really get into this hobby, one of the first things you'll probably want to do is move your setup onto a quality microSD card and learn how to back up your system. Because the last thing you want to lose is your saves or have the included card suddenly fail. There is a secondary card slot, and you can set the OS to look at the ROMs on the secondary card. It doesn't add to the existing list, but sets up symbolic links to the other card. Basically, if you have two cards installed, then it runs Emulation Station from one card and looks at the ROMs on the second. Honestly, you're better off just cloning the original card, expanding the partition, and adding your ROMs to the appropriate directories. It does take a bit of work, but honestly, configuring the systems is half the fun. Battery life is another thing that, believe it or not, has a lot of options. The R36S uses a removable lithium-ion battery with capacities around 3200 to 3500 milliamp hours, depending on the version. Actual runtime depends on the brightness, the emulator, volume, and the games you're playing. For classic 8-bit and 16-bit games, I can get about 6 or 7 hours of playtime out of this. Even though this is advertised as a fast charging system, it takes hours to charge. I ran some meters on this, and when charging and playing a game, it uses about 2.5 watts. The same is true when the thing's completely turned off. By default, the system suspends when you press the power button. You can tell it's on because the blue power LED still stays lit. To completely turn the system off, you have to go into the system menus, select quit, and then shut down the system just like any computer. Since there's no Wi-Fi, there is minimal power drain when you pick it up after a few hours. As long as you get in the habit of shutting it down when you're done with it, then it'll be ready whenever you want it. So let's talk about what I actually love about this thing. Number one, the price. It's ridiculously affordable for what you're getting. Number two, that screen. It's excellent for classic 4x3 games. And number three, the sheer amount of retro gaming you can do on it. And number four, the simplicity. There's something refreshing about picking up the device, turning it on, and immediately start playing your games. There's no notifications, social media, updates, or giant downloads, just games. but it's not perfect. The build quality is obviously budget. The analog sticks aren't amazing, and the clicky buttons can get annoying. The included microSD card may not be something you want to trust long term, and the hardware just simply isn't powerful enough for reliable emulations on more demanding systems. The on the go port is practically useless, and the advertised video out doesn't work. There's no Wi Fi or Bluetooth options, so there's no scraping when you add more games to the system. Configuring this is going to be a little bit more work, but not as headache inducing as building a fragile front end on top of Android or Windows. I don't love that the secondary micro SD card is practically useless. So, who should actually buy an R36S? If you grew up playing Nintendo NES, Super Nintendo, Genesis, Game Boy, or PlayStation, and you want an inexpensive handheld dedicated to just those games, then definitely pick up the R36S. If you need a handheld that can emulate more modern consoles, this isn't it. If you want premium build quality, then you need to keep looking. You might find something with better software support out of the box, and a lot of handhelds are going to be running Linux with Emulation Station. I'm personally not a fan of handhelds with a general purpose OS with a front end app on top of it. This thing is integrated, so the system wide hotkeys work in all of the emulators. You can always exit out by using the same start and select button combo. If you want a cheap little retro machine, this thing's hard to ignore. So, is the R36S worth buying? For the right person, absolutely. It's not powerful, it's not premium, it's not perfect. The R36S takes decades of gaming history, puts it in a little device that fits in your hands, and does it for just $40. And honestly, that's pretty impressive. But what do you think? Is the R36S the best budget retro handheld? What other options have you tried? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you want to see me compare the R36S against some of the newer retro handhelds, then hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and as always, I hope you're having fun.